Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
And we're live from the living room as Doug eyes up the match day spread. He's reaching for the Buffalo wing. Perfect! Hang on, what's this? Oh, he's gone for a can of Pepsi too! Incredible! What a finish! Sensational combination! Look at the delight on his face. There's no doubt about it. It just tastes better. Match days deserve Pepsi. Food deserves Pepsi. Grab a pack of Pepsi Zero Sugar for today's match. It's poetry in motion.
Alrighty, Lionel with you, and this is another side of midnight. On this weekend, I say a hearty hello and Ohio silver to you, my dear, dear friends. Welcome aboard this thing of ours. 800-848-9222. That's the number for you to call, of course, and to wax generic and confused. Might want to lift those locks on the phones, gentlemen. Jackson and Bill at the helm, as we say. Coming up, this is Warrior Weekend. We have, of course, my beloved, my better half, Lynn Shaw from Lynn's Warriors, who's going to be joining us about what's going on this week, anented regarding children and the predation thereupon. Tonight, we're going to be doing later on, you and I will be going into an area that I'm just absolutely just... fascinated by, and pretty much fascinated by, or at the behest of your fascination, and that is the world of, I don't know what you would call it, not the occult, not the paranormal, kind of like the personal. You know, here in, let me see if I can explain, here in New York, in Manhattan, as they say, you could be walking down the street and they have a sign or a building or a walk-up or something that says tarot cards or not mind reading, a psychic, a medium, and all these things. And I wonder sometimes who seriously believes in this. Not so much that, but who would want to walk up or go to some storefront here in Manhattan, and they're on every corner, virtually every corner. And you ask yourself, who is it that would believe in this? Why? And I'm going to give you one of my basic rules, something that I believe in. If a lot of people think something is true, if a lot of people say or believe that something is real, and they've done it for a very long time, there's something to it. Don't dismiss it. I remember years ago getting into a conversation with a friend about acupuncture. And he said, what is this acupuncture? This is ridiculous. I said, how do you think something like this that has been around for this long, promulgated and promoted and practiced by so many, how do you think that this could possibly occur with there being nothing to it whatsoever? How? How is that even possible? How? And he said, it's a good point. So I know there's something to it, and I don't know what. And I want to know why people believe in what they believe. So we'll be talking about that. I also want to tell you that this week for me was an absolute barn. I saw something this week which you might not have seen. You might not have seen. You might not be aware of this. You might not be, you didn't think about it this way, but when I first became, when I first became a part of the WABC family years ago, 93 to be precise. It was at the time of O.J. Simpson. And it was one of the most glorious times that I have ever seen, and we have never seen anything like it. And the reason why it is very, very simple. There was no social media. The only thing that people had to listen to was, of course, at night, something that happened at night, whether it's cable news or at the time it was something like Court TV. But they had to wait until the morning. And we, being Morning Drive, it was the catbird seat. It was wonderful. There was nobody talking about it, save us, or save for us, I should say. And it absolutely, positively, without a doubt, was my personal ignition switch, my HOV lane, which opened up so many doors and so much listenership. It was talk radio at its finest. It was just wonderful. And we had a different disposition and a different way of looking at things. We had trolls to an extent, but not like this. Well, this past week was a case which a lot of people did not really handle. It was the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing. And the preliminary hearing is merely to determine whether the prosecution can prove or show probable cause to, quote, bind over a defendant. And a probable cause means he probably did it. It's this probably one of the simplest, I think, next to prima facie, one of the simplest burdens of proof. What I saw this week was something that, when I tell you I was shocked, and I'm never shocked, very rarely am I truly shocked. People sometimes say they are, but nah. But I saw something that was just spooky. First and foremost, cable news, conventional media just abandoned it. Put up the most perfunctory, boring, unimaginative, unimportant coverage you could imagine. Just repeating whatever prosecutors said and doing a 1-minute hit, and that's it. Any other particular medium, whether it's conventional news, it was the same thing. Tyler Robinson was presumed guilty. There was no question in anybody's mind. And it's funny. I cannot applaud my predecessor, Dr. Sky, and also the management, John Catsimatidis, Margot Catsimatidis, and Chad Lopez, for allowing him to even venture into areas that used to be dismissed and used to be called conspiracy theories. And conspiracy theories were, and still are in many respects, this code word for crazy. Lunatic, nuts, crazy, crazy, crazy. Well, let me tell you something. The last vestige of the really good stuff, the last vestige, the last area that we can get into when it comes to conspiracies is the notion of the government, the shadow government, deep state, and the patsy murders since JFK, MLK, RFK, Malcolm X, just go Medgar Evers, go down the list. In my generation, I was born in 58. So in 63, I was 5 years old, and I remember the Kennedy assassination. I remember as clear as day, my mother crying, and I said, "What's going on here?" There was a murder on prime time. It was fascinating. It has never left me. That and Santa Claus, by the way, two of the greatest red pill moments of my life, when I said, wow, do you mean to tell me there are evil people out there who would kill President Kennedy? Yes, Why? Well, the why may be difficult, but yes, there are. Wow. So from 63 to 68, in my lifetime, my generation, in a 5-year period, if you think about this, it was John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, again, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and then, that was just 5 years. Then there was Watergate, Vietnam, 9/11, just go down the list. My whole world has been a part of watching these things happen before my eyes. And in every single instance, the theme was the same. The official narrative was balderdash, bunkum, tripe, manufactured. The original, the official narrative made no sense. And that's why I'm so, I can't praise Dr. Sky enough for daring to venture into these areas like Flight 800. Because I remember the time talking to Jim Kallstrom, who was a great friend of mine. He said, "Oh no, this is exactly the way it was." And I would never, ever, 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 how do I say this? I would never dispute the great Jim Kallstrom. But I do know, and I'm sure you do too, that at certain levels of government, in order for you to get along, to be a part of the system, to get that pension, to get that promotion, to you don't do very well if you challenge the status quo. And I don't read too much into that. But you're not going to be a company person if you publicly go out and explain questions that you have about a particular narrative. And I saw it before over and over again. I saw it where people said, no, that's exactly what happened. And when it came to 9/11, remember, we have the 25th anniversary, and you were going to see absolutely nothing. You're going to see this. I can read it now. I can hand you the script, and nobody is going to question. He's going to say, but here's something interesting. What about Building 7? Or what about never? Now, this past week, something happened which I said was fascinating to me. During OJ, we never had social media, like I said. If you were watching, if you're a trial junkie or if you're into this, if you think that this is a 100% slam dunk against this Tyler Robinson, you are out of your mind. Now, what does that mean? Well, all I know is the official narrative doesn't make any sense. And the proof, quote unquote, that was adduced was, well, questionable in some cases. But what blew me away was this scrum, the groups of people who just they were online, and they were hitting the drums. It was the drum beat over and over. And what they did was, it became, I never saw this coming. It became not so much a discussion about, this is social media now, X in particular. This became not so much a discussion about the case, Tyler Robinson or Charlie Kirk, but about Candace Owens. And you might ask yourself, what does Candace Owens have to do with this case? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But through this, I keep using the word scrum, through this murmuration. Those are the words. If you've ever seen starlings fly in these incredibly fascinating patterns, that's a murmuration. Schools of fish, whenever you see these movements, out of nowhere came these hate pitchfork and torch crowds. And I kept asking, what does she have to do with anything? Didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was a separate momentum. Two things occurred to me. Number one, how petty and frankly silly. A lot of people are who don't really understand it. But number two, how very easily, as in the case of a rodeo clown, the barrelman, the rodeo clown that's sent out whenever there's a fallen rider or bull rider, and that bull is bearing down on that poor cowboy, you send in the clown to be Sondheim-esque, and you distract, you divert attention. And could this be orchestrated? I don't know. But like I said, this week, in covering this every day, I still can't believe what happened. Because during the time of OJ, we never had this. Our number is 800-848-9222. Coming up, it is Warrior Weekend with my beloved, my wife, Lynn Shaw, to bring you up to date on this subject that is so critical, our children and protecting our children. On Another Side of Midnight with me, Lionel.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Alrighty, this is Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight, 800-848-9222. This is a regular and frankly my favorite installment during our time with you over the weekend. This is called Warrior Weekend. Lynn's Warriors, lynswarriors.org, Lynn's Warriors on YouTube, and Lynn's_Warriors on X. Tonight's subject, very simple, it's called freedom. This is a fascinating subject. This is the notion of what is happening with children right now. What is happening? What is happening regarding our children, but in terms also of predation. Not only that, but the regular types of predation, which is so monumentally fascinating. Without further ado, I bring to the microphones right now my beloved, my better half. I love when they say full disclosure. It's full disclosure. Lynn Shaw from Lynn's Warriors. Lynn, my darling, welcome back to Another Side of Midnight.
Good morning, Lionel. Thank you, as always, for having me back, and to WABC, and also our weekly segment on the Cats Roundtable to get the information out into the public, our warriors out there, about how to keep our kids safe online and in real time, because it really is the true war going on, the American crisis, right here at home.
Tell us today the theme of our show this weekend. This is so interesting. This is the new NCMEC NCMEC cyber tip line report. That sounds rather technical, sounding the alarm. What is this about, pray tell?
Listen, I hope everybody's sitting down. I mean, wake up, America, because this is a newly released report. It comes out yearly from the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. They call it NCMEC, for short. National Center on Missing and Exploited Children in Washington, D.C. They just released the 2025 report, and it paints the most horrifying, sobering picture, now get ready, everybody, of online threats facing our kids today. And it really serves as a wake-up call for everyone, for parents, for educators, for our policymakers, and the big tech companies, that we need their help in keeping our kids safe. I want to go over, this is, so I can hardly say it, the cyber tip line. That is something where if there's an image, your child, a family, you want to report some sort of sexual image or dialogue, this is where you go, cybertipline.org. That belongs to the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children. And everybody knows really who they are. They put out the Amber Alerts. They've been in business for over 30 years. There's a lot of help out there, but I want to go over these numbers. More than 1.4 million reports of online enticement, more than 50,000 reports of financial sextortion, 113,000 reports involving child sex trafficking and exploitation, and this is a 158% increase in online enticement from the year before, 2024, and a 323% increase in child sex trafficking reports. Let me remind everybody, these are not statistics. These are kids. These are children we're talking about. So the internet has become, the playground for kids, the classroom, the social center for an entire generation. But it's also become the hunting ground for these criminals, these predators, these scammers who understand technology much better than most parents and caregivers do. So we got to wake up, America, because the good news is parents are not powerless, right? We're talking about it. So awareness is prevention. Talking about it again, conversations save lives, and communities must understand this very, it's tough to, Lionel, to even hear these numbers or talk about it, but if communities stand together, we can protect kids. And remember, the numbers I just gave you, that's what we know about. In this world of exploitation, the numbers are always higher because things go unreported, people are embarrassed, but over 300% increase from the year before. I am afraid to see what next year's numbers will be. But remember, everybody, there is help. There is something called the cybertipline.org.
Now, what stood out to you most from the NCMEC report? What was the most salient of those findings?
Well, I think the sheer number, Lionel, of reports alone involving online enticement shows us that this is no longer some little, thing we sweep under the rugs or something. It's no longer a niche issue. It is affecting families in America, right? We're talking about America right now, everybody, in every community, in every city, in every town, in every rural area across the United States. Nobody is exempt. The sheer numbers, again, that we are talking about is unbelievable. And this should be something that everybody is aware of, made aware of. There should be a PSA about it because we can no longer tolerate this predation upon our children. We must wake up and start dealing with this.
We're talking to Lynn Shaw from lynswarriors.org. For those who might not be as conversant, and I'm glad they're not, with online predation, explain what exactly is meant by online enticement.
I know, two horrible words. We deal with at the Warriors all the time. Online enticement. Let me break it down. It occurs when an adult attempts to establish an inappropriate relationship with a child online for basically sexual purposes, exploitation, coercion, and that basically begins with a conversation, mostly compliments and trust building. Remember, kids are, overall, we have a youth mental health crisis. Kids are isolated. Kids may all be in a group together, but you'll see them. We've seen them together, Lionel. They're all on their phones together, not even talking to each other. So it begins, our kids are seeking out attention, love, compliments, and they're getting it from strangers online. So that is part of the grooming process. And we used to talk about, something like this would happen within a 48-hour span. We are now seeing this grooming process, this coercion, right? These compliments, this love bombing, whatever you want to call it, happening within hours, where we have 1 in 4 children approached online. And I say children, I mean under 18, right? Approached online by a stranger. And of that, that's like 25%. Again, the numbers are higher. This is what we know about. Of that, 1 in 4 being approached online by a stranger, 45% will attempt to meet that stranger in real life. Lionel, it's almost half of these kids are going out to meet. And I don't know about you, but I am deluged every day. There are headlines coming out about, kids and strangers, and then they met them on Instagram, and they met them on Snap, and they met them on X. It is really just completely, I'm a broken record, out of control. That is why we all have to wake up and talk about it.
And also we have to understand that not only, certainly I think that is the worst, obviously, physical contact. Once a child meets a stranger, then you're in cars and homes and abduction and death and kidnapping and everything can ensue. But I think we've all been made aware that in many cases, look at some of these famous folks, Congress people, you don't even have to meet them. You can either supply photos, you can have illicit conversations. Look at the people, how many people have fallen. Grown men, I'm not going to go through the list, but you can just do a quick scan. People who've lost lucrative businesses and online positions because they've sexted, or there's something about this phone that is, in one respect, we can't live without it, but it has become the portal, the connector between behaviors that years ago, when we were kids, this is crazy to say this, but we had the flasher. And granted, that was strange. Exhibitionism, this is frightening. But that seemed so tame, believe it or not, compared to what this is. Now, the questions that we have to also ask is, what's so interesting about this? I think we're talking to Lynn Shaw from lynswarriors.org. What about financial sextortion? How does that work, and what is it?
Well, financial sextortion, that is something that is affecting primarily teenage boys, okay? And you might say, why boys? Okay, first, what is this financial sextortion? These criminals, these predators, they convince kids, right, to send. And the ages are younger and younger. We have reports of, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, and that's another question, why those kids even have the devices in the first place. But you as a lawyer know better than anybody there is something called parental autonomy. So we can't tell people, parents, when to buy a phone or an iPad for a child. But again, everybody remember, delay is the way. But these criminals online, they convince children or teenagers to send these explicit images. And the kids do it, right? And then they threaten them. They're going to release them to their parents, to their schools, to their friends, unless money is paid. It is that simple. And many of these victims, again, are teenage boys who, kids think, especially boys, well, girls too, they're invincible. But they go after the boys for one reason, because the boys are embarrassed to come forward. They also target, they have operations across the world where there are warehouses, and these criminals are just sitting at table after table, row after row, and this is all they do all day long, 24 hours a day, target teenage boys in America. Okay, and they try to go to what they deem, middle class, upper middle class neighborhoods. Remember, people are putting, kids especially, all kinds of pictures and information, everything about them online, where they go to school, where they live, what sports group, what dance group, all that stuff. So these criminals are sitting there, they have your information. And they use that against you. So they know where somebody lives. They know where somebody goes to school, where somebody hangs out. And the boys, again, are more embarrassed. They don't come forward. And the boys try to pay this money. When we could just teach this lesson of, it is very simple. Not that any of this is simple. I don't want to, demean it like that. Because I deal with parents nonstop, children who have killed themselves over this sextortion. Boys, if they just went to the parent, kids do dumb things. Okay, mom and dad, I exchange this image, this dialogue. Number one, everybody, tell a trusted adult. Number two, do not communicate with anybody, a stranger telling you $7,500 on release your picture. The hard fact is, if you ignore them, block them, don't send them any money, okay, they will go on to their next victim. I don't like saying that. They will go on. That's what they do. They don't care about you. They don't know you. They're not going to do anything to you. So even these kids who try so hard to send money, they think these strangers are going to stop with the images and all that from sending them to their families and their schools and their friends. You know what? They will still harass you for the money. You're not going to, no matter how much money you pay them, it does not work. You are to ignore, block, tell a trusted adult, and then that adult must call local law enforcement, must call the local FBI office, which is 1-800-CALL-FBI. These crimes, I don't get it, Lionel, because, even in our day, right, we had like stranger danger and all that, which sticks with, like, adults now will say, remember we had stranger danger. We hand a child a device. It's opening up the world with no guardrails. We have to do better.
Recently, it has happened where it might have died down, but not too long ago, regular folks, adults, men, would get an email from someplace that says, I know who you are. We hacked into your computer. We know what you've done. We know what you've watched. Explaining or threatening that they have pictures of an adult, let's say in some embarrassing situation, and send Bitcoin, send money here. This was, I think it's died down, but this was, in fact, there are people, they would send these out en masse. This was on regular emails. So it's not just children.
Right.
So this is, and when we always think about these phone centers, these phone banks, we think about the elderly being scared and frightened, and wait until AI really kicks in. But let's talk about this. We're talking to Lynn Shaw from lynswarriors.org, Lynn's Warriors on YouTube, and Lynn's_Warriors on X. Which apps concern or should concern parents the most right now?
Well, first of all, let me just finish a thought, because you brought something up. The Brooklyn DA's office told me they have a division with scamming, okay? And they told me they cannot keep up with it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have, I don't know the number off the top of my head, it was like loads and loads of, people working on this. This scamming going on is around the clock. You bring up the fact, we're not just talking about kids, adults, and it is just increasing and increasing. And artificial intelligence, this is changing the landscape for our entire lives, because this AI, okay, it can generate fake images. It can impersonate people, voices, automate, complete manipulation. Who thinks this is a good idea? This technology is moving faster than safeguards. Look, we're talking about, the internet started in 1996, and we're still talking about let's have some safeguards, now, right there.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. 800-848-9222. I sound like a broken record. I got to tell you this story. Every now and then I find myself using these terms by virtue of my wizened decrepitude. But in my generation, we knew what these terms meant. Nothing really big, but you don't really realize how things have changed until and unless you talk to younger folks. And not too long ago, I mentioned the phrase, a broken record. I sound like a broken record. And then I kind of got this look, and I said, by the way, I forget who I was talking to. I said, do you know where or why I use this term broken record? What does that mean? And whoever it was looked at me and says, you broke a record? Like, gold record, gold medal? I said, no. It's not about a level of achievement. It's a record. The needle would skip. It would. And he looked at me, the needle? The style? What are you talking about? I realized that was a cliche, but this is the best one. And I found this to be most interesting. And young people are very, very smart. Gen Z, whatever they are. But somebody said, will you CC me on that? Jerry, would you CC Maxine on that, Max? And I said, just curious. Do you know what CC means? And somebody said, when you copy, somebody said, yeah. But CC, what does CC stand for? It's an initials for it's not an acronym. It's initials for what? An abbreviation for what? And they looked at me and said, carbon copy. And again, they looked at me like, what is this man talking about? I said, carbon copy, carbon paper, oilcloth. What are you talking about? I said, well, and I find this wonderful. And I realized, my God, the other day I was talking to somebody about 9/11. I said, well, this is the 25th anniversary of 9/11, because I talk to people like they're peers. I don't consider myself to be from another planet. I have to remind myself that I'm from, a generation. I'm a senior citizen by some accounts. I don't know why, but that's what they call me. And sure enough, I'm looking at this and I said, people are very, very smart. I said, but we have to kind of connect a little bit better. And what is the greatest thing, which to me, I'm always fascinated by how things have changed. I always feel like the prisoner, the guy who gets out of prison, who never knew about cell phones, a person who has to be reacclimated. I know what's out there, But I'm surprised at how social media in particular have changed. Years ago, whenever we talked about cameras in the courtroom, I used to think, cameras in the courtroom are the problem. No, cameras in the courtroom are not the problem. The problem is social media. And as I was mentioning at the beginning of this hour, this week we're talking about the Tyler Robinson case. I saw people who were saying it's a slam dunk. It's a slam dunk. And recently this Jack Probiotics, Proboscis, I don't know who this guy is, from some show, and he said, I was there in the courtroom and I saw an actual video, a video so clear, so clean, so 4K, so clear of Tyler Robinson actually gunning down and shooting Charlie Kirk. And without exception, people said, that never happened. There was no media. But wait a minute, why did they say that? I don't know. Why did he say he saw this? And then another one saw it. And then the momentum started. Case is over, case closed. I said, this is a preliminary hearing. But you had actual sources saying, no, we never reported that. But the scrum, the movement, the collective idea, the anthem, the pitchfork and torch crowd, all repeated the mantra, the incantation, the rote statement of what they said they saw. And each, I say tweet, but each post fueled another one. Okay. It's dangerous. Coming up on a more fascinating level, the notion of the paranormal, what people think in their own personal lives, astrology and channeling. Oh my God, how I love this. More coming up on Another Side of Midnight with me, Lionel, 800-848-9222. Stay tuned.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Already lined up with you. Hour number 2 of this thing of ours on Another Side of Midnight. 800-848-9222. Nothing fascinates me more than the human mind, our behavior, our superstitions, our mythologies, our beliefs, our religions, our practices. The other day, in fact, it was yesterday, my wife and I were perambulating about, locomoting about, on the Upper West Side. We walked in front of one of the local Catholic churches, and a funeral had just either let out or was completed. And I always stop and I said, look at this. Look at how we handle something as simple as death. Death and taxes, something so absolutely guaranteed ordinary. Guaranteed. You were born to die. The cemeteries, what they say, are filled with indispensable men. You have, how many times have you been driving around and there's a beautiful neighborhood or an area and there's a cemetery? Cemeteries, to me, personally, are obscene. I hate them. I will never be buried in one. I will never be near one. I want to plot. I want burial. Burial, of course, to me would be, not embalming, but cremation, liquidation. By the way, there's a new way of people are using, in I think in California they're doing it. They use water to basically pulverize you. No heat, low carbon footprint. But they use water and peroxide and various chemicals to aid in the form of a hydrologized putrefaction, if this makes any sense. And this is one of the most fascinating things which I find fascinating. I mean it absolutely more than anything you can imagine. And I will say this. I would, how do I say this? Hang on a minute. I don't know why we do it. I remember one time seeing, when I was a kid, one of these moments these moments when you just remember when you entered into the adult world. And my father was very, very big in letting us know about death. It was he was always the one in the family that kind of took care of, getting it done and going to the funeral home. So this guy, it was very smart. And he said, just, this is a part of life. Don't get freaked out over it. And I remember one time as a kid, this sounds almost like a joke or a routine, but it's the truth. I went to this, somebody died in our family, and I looked at the casket, and the person, the dead person, a relative, had glasses on. Now, this may not sound like much to you. Maybe you think nothing of it. But this confounded me like you cannot believe. He had on glasses. Glasses. So I asked my mother and father, why does Aunt, did you need whatever? Why is she wearing glasses? They said, because she wore them when she was alive. And I said, but she didn't wear them when she went to sleep. And she's dead. And I knew clearly what dead was, but they were trying to explain this to me. They said, well, you see, people would not maybe recognize her. I said, they're not going to recognize her? And even as a kid, I said, we're going to the funeral home. There's a room. It's got her name outside. Everybody inside are people that we know. They're signing the book. They're there. How are they not going to know who she is? And again, my parents are saying, why are these guys asking me? But they never shooed me away. They never said, just stop it. Stop asking these stupid questions. No, they said, well, it's a good question. Well, and the best part about it was I said, I don't understand. And it just not bothered me. It just killed me. No pun intended. It just was the silliest thing I've ever seen. Why are these adults acting like this? They're going out of their way. When I was even younger, my mother was notorious. We saw my one relative, Valentin, or as they called him, Valentin with a B. I love this guy. He was really a good egg. I loved him. He's my Aunt Tia Pepina's husband. Anyway, great guy. So my mother went and she said, listen, we're going to pay our respects. He's dead. I said, I understand. And she even said, touch his hand. It's okay. And she said, see, and I'm telling you, my parents were so hip. Death was just this part of life. Don't let it freak you out. So my mother says, listen, watch the door. I said, what? Watch the door. Cover me. Cover you? What are you doing? And she slipped a mass card into his pocket or whatever. I said, what was that for? So help me God. She said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. She said, good luck. Good luck? He's dead. Well, yeah, but I said, what did you give him? Like a subway token? We had tokens, a Metro card for the hereafter. I understand it. Then my aunts, my beloved aunts, I know you've got them. I never understood how much I loved them then, but this is my grandmother's sisters, and they were just, each one was a comedy instruction. Aunt Rose, Josephine, Pauline, well, we had Pepina, Carmelina, Pauline, Beatrice. Then we had this Ignatia. I don't know. I can't even say this. It sounds like Nazi. It's weird. Ignatia, like Ignatius, Anyway, whatever. Nobody could really. We had a relative named Nanya. That was his name, Nanya, who was reduced to Nya. That was his name, Nya. It's like an Enya. This would be Italian. So we had all these people. Okay. So one of them died. I forget who it was. And everybody said, doesn't he look great? Doesn't he look like himself? Now, as a kid, I thought to myself, these people are out of their minds. Doesn't he look great? No. Looks dead. Doesn't he look like he's sleeping? Well, don't sleep like that. Remember the old Bill Cosby joke? No, he doesn't. I saw one woman, so help me God. She looked, this is ridiculous, better than she did when she was alive. I know that sounds crazy. I know that sounds nuts. I saw somebody one time buried in a wicker basket. It's kind of a new thing. In a basket. So, listen, I'm not trying to mock this, but me personally, it's absurd. It's just the height of absurdity. And the way they don't mean to do this. Listen, they're a noble profession. God bless them. Remember Bonacera, the Undertaker, and but you go in there and they hit you with stuff and the casket and the ceremony and the flowers. Oh my God. Because we forget exactly what it was. Okay. Where am I going with this rambling? What is this all about, Alfie? I'll tell you what it's all about. It's us. Let me tell you something. When you do these kind of shows and people say, hey, let's talk about things like MK Ultra. Let's talk about UAPs. Let's talk about, extraterrestrials. Let's talk about the hereafter. Let's talk about humans. Let's talk about being human. These humans are crazy. We are out of our mind. My God, this fascinates me more than anything you can possibly explain. And the thing that I love the most is what we believe on our own. And I have been a part of, and I knew growing up in Florida, we had a very strong Cuban contingent. And I remember years ago being introduced to Santeria. And I knew a lot of my kind of relatives who were into Santeria, or Santeria, as people say. Sounds like sangria sideways. Santeria. And they had the Santero, the priest. And I remember one time there was a friend's wife. He came home one day from working in the garage. He found, it looked like a scene from Dexter almost. It was like a shower curtain and blood. And he thought, what the heck is this? And his wife, who was really into it, summoned the Santero from Miami to sacrifice. I think it was a pigeon or something. It's a fascinating subject. In Santeria, this was what used to be called kind of voodoo, but in the Caribbean islands, there's brujeria, which is black magic, which is a different story. But in order for them to enjoy the practice of their belief, they would often mimic or use the names of Catholic saints as a cover, as a means of, not of a deception. And one that I knew was El Egua, which is, they call him Saint Anthony. But it wasn't Saint Anthony, it was the child, El Egua. And El Egua, you can always tell the shrines people would have at home. I saw this a lot. I didn't think about it when I was a kid. Railroad spike, coconut, rolls of money, cigars, rum. It was weird, little toys. It made no sense. This is a child. So one time I had a friend of mine whose wife was a practitioner, a believer in this. So I went to pick him up. We're going to court in the morning. It must be like 7 o'clock, 7:30, whatever it was. So I pick him up, and he reeks of like cigars and booze. And I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You better, rinse your something." He goes, "Oh, can you smell it?" And I said, "Yeah." "Are you drinking?" He said, "Well, not really." "Not really?" He said, "Well, here's the story. Because his wife apparently was having her monthly cycle, or as you remember in the old days, he said, my little friend is here." A little friend. Anyway, because his wife was going through her little friend, she couldn't go into the room where the altar was for Elegua. He had to. And he had to blow cigar smoke on this shrine and take rum, just kind of swirl it and spit it out, spray it, kind of aspirate it. I was fascinated by this. Many people who believe it. There's these botanicas, you might have seen them, where you go and you buy the various flowers or medallions. Here's the thing that a practitioner, not a santero per se, but a practitioner told me. They said the difference between Santeria and other religions is that in other whether it's a religion or not, I don't know. But they said in other religions, you're just told to believe. Whether you get an answer to your prayers, doesn't really matter. Just continue to believe. But in Santeria, they say you don't have to follow anything unless we give you what you ask for. Then you're committed. And I love that idea. Why? Because human behavior, how we handle death and life and the hereafter and God and spirits and reincarnation fascinates me. When we return, we will divine and devise and discriminate and define, I should say, between wishing, hoping, and believing. On the other side of midnight with me, Lionel.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Already Lionel with you? Oh, yeah. Our number is 800-848-9222. I've always been fascinated by people's faith. I love it. And growing up, I told you, in Florida, we had, of course, these very interesting people, and I thought nothing of it. Santeria, Santeros, Regia de Ocha. You incorporated the Orishas known as the Santos. This originated into the Yoruba religion in West Africa. Oh, I love this stuff. It's fascinating. And in the tradition, Orishas, these were like the deities or whatever, serve as intermediaries between the supreme God. It's basically the same idea. If you think about it, it's a different way of doing it, but it's a kind of a monotheistic deity called Olorun and humanity. And what they do was they used Catholic saints as what is called syncretization or amalgamation, or trying to fuse the two. Now, I mentioned Elegua, this is the master of gates, crossroads, destiny. This was syncretized, or not hidden, but amalgamated, if you will, through St. Anthony of Padua. I love these names, Obatala. It makes me want to think of Mano de Bango, Amuna Yeye. I love the sound of African. I love that. There's some sounds I love. I love to hear the language of Portuguese, but specifically Brasileiro, the samba, the jobim, the Rio, that zh sound. It's beautiful to me. I love African. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Obatala. Listen to this. The ruler of wisdom, peace, and white cloth. I don't know what that means. And it's syncretized with Our Lady of Mercy. Then there's Yemaya, the mother of the world and the owner of the ocean, syncretized with Our Lady of Regia. This is my favorite name, Chango. It's like Django, but Chango, or Shango. Chango, Chango. This is the fierce Orisha of thunder, fire, and lightning. Syncretized, by the way, with St. Barbara. My mother was a big St. Barbara fan. We had holy water and whenever, when you were a kid in this tropical Florida, when the rains came and the lightning, the house shook, and it was scary. People were like, with lightning on phones. It was wild. Oshun, the deity of beauty, sweetness, and wealth, syncretized with Our Lady of Charity. Oya, the fierce ruler of the winds, storms, and the cemetery, syncretized with Our Lady of Candelaria or Saint Teresa. And it goes on and on and on. These are, you have initiates called Babaloshas, and it's what I'm saying, it is beautiful. And what it is it may not be Christian per se. It may not follow the Christian ideology, but I believe it goes to show you this incredibly fascinating thing that humans do when we will, if left to our own devices, on our own, we will, if we're not told specifically, we will create means, myth, stories to explain the inexplicable. Let's go to the phones, 800-848-9222. Joe in Africa? Is this correct? You're on the other side of midnight with Lionel? Joe? Joe, are you there? Joe, I can hear something. He's gone. Now that would have been good. It said Joe? It said Africa. Now, you don't get that too often. And father, a relative, was saved by a witch doctor. Now, I know people get very upset. Very upset. I tell people I'm kind of a retired Catholic, meaning I don't practice it. To me, to be a Catholic, you've got to practice it. You just don't say you are. You've got to holy days of obligation, everything else. But growing up, I always had a respect for people's faith. Really do. I love it. It's fascinating to me. And when it comes to this subject, witch doctors or santerias, have you ever been into a botanica? Look, ask. If you're not fascinated by this, you're not paying attention. Let's go to Larry on Long Island. You're on another side of midnight, with Lionel.
Cemeteries, Lionel. I got to tell you, ever since I was a kid, I have been outraged over one thing when it comes to cemeteries.
What?
That they've allowed some of the biggest movies to be filmed. That, to me, is an invasion that I've never understood. If I was watching a show right now with Peter Falk and Dick Van Dyke in a scene from Columbo, and my mother's headstone was in the background during one of their shots, I think I wouldn't be happy.
That's a very interesting thing. What about movies that take pictures or take place in churches?
I don't find that as invasive. The Godfather. How many people did it take? How many hours that they invaded this huge cemetery? Is there anything more disgusting? And I love The Godfather.
Now, may I ask you something? To me,
Please.
I'm going to give you something which is different. Number one, I think as a human being, I respect what your belief is. I don't in any way disagree. How can I disagree with your feeling? If you feel something, it's real for you. I look at this as the repository of the bodies of people whose spirits have left us. These are their spacesuits. They are no longer human. These are remains. Do you have a problem with cremation?
No, as a matter of fact, I plan on being cremated.
Okay. Well, I'm saying you can burn your body, but I can't film The Godfather in there? I say, what? Does that make any sense? I mean, listen, if you can. I know what you're saying. Have you heard people say this? This is my favorite. They will say, don't step on this. You're stepping on where the head is. I said, how do you know where the head of this person is? Don't stand on top of the grave. Stand to the side. I said, what are you talking about? Because that's desecration. You know what I mean? Something. How about mausoleums? These incredibly ornate, these condominiums for the dead, and also the deed structures of cemeteries. Are they in perpetuity? Do they ever go out of business? Do they ever stop paying tax? I mean, how about sometimes you could be in New York, or you can be in Jersey, and you have these highways that split. One side, you see miles of headstones, and on the other side, miles of headstones. And that to me is, I'm thinking, what is this? All of this land. This is a free country. You do whatever you want. But I find that even more, not problematic, but fascinating.
I've always
Larry, why do we do this? What is the ceremony of death? How does that work?
Look, I agree with you. Mausoleums, I've never understood. Some of those mausoleums must have a kitchen, must have color TV and cable on them.
Right.
It is crazy. It is crazy. There are people in New York.
No, wait. It's not crazy.
Go ahead.
This makes people happy. Listen, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want. I know
people who are looking for an apartment in New York who would probably pay $3,500 a month for one of those mausoleums. I swear to God, they look like little apartments.
But what does that mean? One of the things I think deep down inside is that we are doing everything in our power to avoid the reality that this person's existence is no more, at least in this form. And we will dress them up. We will put them, a suit and tie, with a suit with no back, pancake makeup. I don't want to go into the specifics, okay? But if you knew what is done to the bodies to prepare them to give the appearance of natural look, it would make your hair curl. The trocar, maceration, the perfusion of formulas, subclavian exsanguination. I mean, it is really something, and it's an art. I remember one time on the subway, there was this nice-looking young lady, and there was a time on the subway, maybe you remember, where people read. You had newspapers, and when you left the newspaper, you read the paper, the AM, and how all these papers and Post or whatever. But this woman a young girl was reading a book, Fundamentals of Mortuary Science or Embalming. And she's reading this. And I thought, this is, and you have no idea how I'd love to say, explain to me, how did you find yourself? There was a song, John Conley. He wrote Miss Emily's Picture. He sang it. He's a country music singer. Wine-colored glasses or red rose. Anyway, he was an embalmer. Do you know what that is? Do you know what this is? It fascinates me. And it goes back to, and it is our inability to understand that these people are no longer here. We're kidding ourselves. How about the names? I got plenty of time. I got so much time, it's not even funny. At least for now.
You have time.
What's on your mind?
Do you have time for one? I just thought of it. One quick horrible moment at a wake that I attended years ago.
Yes.
Okay. So I worked for my company for over 33 years. One of the ladies there lost her grandson in a horrific car accident. I'm not going to go into specifics. But 5 or 6 people died in the car. He went crazy. He was driving over 120 miles an hour, and they went off the parkway on Long Island.
Oh, my God.
We are at the wake. We're lined up, some of us from the company. We are now about 2 or 3 feet from the couple sitting there, and we are paying our respects. Mm-hmm. One of the ladies who I drove with to the wake, her phone goes off. It's blasting Led Zeppelin.
Oh, no.
And I am doing everything I can. I'm biting the inside of my face to stop them laughing. The most inappropriate moment I think I ever experienced. She couldn't turn the phone off. It took at least 10, 15 seconds for her to figure out why Led Zeppelin shouldn't be blasted in front of parents who just lost their son.
I know. I know. You see, this is something which is, and you bring up something which is so interesting to me. I could talk forever about laughing. What makes us laugh? What you just said, you are not a sick person, though many of your family, I'm sure, must apologize for you on a regular basis. But sometimes do you remember the most important movie, the most important episode, I think, in current television history was Chuckles the Clown, Mary Tyler Moore. Did you see that?
I did. It was a great
Chuckles the Clown was about suppressed laughter. Yep. And I did something one time that was so terrible. I could not imitate. I'm not a good impersonator, but I could imitate my Aunt Rose. I was so good. I would call people up, relatives, doing Aunt Rose and cursing, dropping an F-bomb. And she would have never done that. And you go, what's the matter? Anyway, I was good. They knew I was good. My sister's next to me. Aunt Rose is no more. She's no longer with us. Okay. So I started under my breath. There is a hell. If there's a hell, I'm in the smoking section. My sister, who was always frightened, and I could tell my sister anything. I told her she was adopted. She believed me. She was 38 at the time, which is weird. But anyway, I told her the police brought her. I told her she had arthritis. I told her anything, she believed it. So as we're there, and she wasn't really hip to this funeral thing. I started kind of doing a voice saying, "Let me out. I can't breathe in here." Now this is as Aunt Rose, and I can't do the voice. Anyway, but it's spot on. And my sister is looking at me with a sense of horror. Like, we can't be laughing. And I'm looking at her, and the more she's terrified, the straighter my face. I got to tell you one more story. Listen to this. When we have so many aunts. We have Pina, Joseph. We have more Josephines, Pina, Benita, all these names. Well, my father said, "Now listen, we're going to go early," because he had to do the funeral work. He said, "But understand something. Pina doesn't look the same, okay?" "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, she was sick. I don't know if it was cancer or whatever." But he said, "I just don't want you to say anything." I said, "I'm not going to say anything." He said, "Okay, but I'm just warning you. She just doesn't look the same." I said, "Wow." And I was a kid. I said, "What?" Because I didn't know about what death, because sometimes, you shrink and different things happen when you die, obviously. So we got there early and I looked, and at the end of this, in this visitation, this little mini, not altar, but this chapel, I said, "Can I go in and look?" He said, "Yeah, nobody's here." He goes, "But remember," I said, I know, she's different. She's changed." So I'm walking down the hall, not that hall, down the aisle or the whatever it is. And I could see a face in the casket. And the closer I got, because of the parallax, I could see the face is obviously becoming more and more visible. When I looked down, now Pina was like 3 feet tall. This woman was, see, my aunts, they weren't midgets. They were just all like tiny. And she had, anyway, I look and this woman's huge. She has glasses. Pina never wore glasses. I think she's got glasses. Her hair is different. And I was horrified. I said, "My God, It's true. So my father says, what are you doing? I said, I didn't say anything. He goes, no, that's not Pina. She's in the other room. So I thought to myself, my God, when you die, you grow, you become larger. I was a kid. I had no idea. We talked about that forever. And the thing about it is that death is the first time as a child, death of a pet, death of anything, where you say, where did they go? And it's the first time that you become cosmically connected. It's the first time you say, oh, and then you start getting a little transcendental. And then you maybe go to religion, maybe you go to faith, maybe you go to the spiritual. But it's this idea of where did they go? It goes back to Piaget, object permanence. I don't understand how he's not here anymore. What is he? Is it his body? Is our body a spacesuit? Is it the spirit that inhabits us? It's a fascinating subject, but guess what? Nobody wants to talk about it. I don't know.
Tell me if this is unusual. Anytime I have been to a wake or a funeral and there's an open casket over the years, not that it's happened 1,000 times, but I always stare at the person and I'm looking to see a slight flickering in the eyelids or the nose flaring.
Yes. Because if you stare long enough, you'll swear you'll see movement, because this is something you're accustomed to. The idea of having a soulless, lifeless shell is something that we're not used to. Oh, it's a fascinating subject. One time we had one time. This is so strange. We had in the Catholic Church the Mass of the Angels. This is what a child. I was in grade school and we had this kid who died. Not really sure. We weren't sure if it was suicide. We don't know what happened. But anyway, we all went to this thing, the Mass of the Angels. And in this, I am so sick. I'm telling you right now, please turn this off. I'm demented. Okay, I'm just warning you. I'm demented. God or somebody said, we're going to give you a way of looking at things. We walked up to the casket to see our friend, our colleague, to bid goodbye. And he's in his Little League outfit with a bat and a glove inside the casket. Now I'm thinking to myself, what purpose? Now I understand. Sometimes I'll look and there'll be somebody who'll have Yankees memorabilia on a casket. Okay, all right. I mean, it's a free country. What does this even mean? How does this work? And then we get into, and also one of the best lines ever. My dad's friend, Tony, this guy was one of the funniest people, and he never realized why. And we said, he and my dad were talking, and Tony said, what about cremation? Tony, what do you think? And Tony said, so help me God. He says, I don't know why. He says, it's just too final. And I burst out laughing. I said, that's brilliant. He says, what? I said, too final. What do you mean? I said, well, you're dead. Yeah, I know. But what? Anyway, because when people die, we just lose our minds. And we the notion of mourning. We see it in elephants. We see it in certain animals. This idea of that, where did they go? You recognize it as lost, and you cry not for them. You cry for you, your sadness. He's too young.
I sat down a couple of years ago with one funeral home in my area because I hadn't made plans. And I sat down with them, and I found one thing. They had a sense of humor. It wasn't all gloom and doom. It was just a matter-of-fact discussion,
right,
which I found really refreshing. At one point, I said, look, I want to be cremated. Can I ask you one thing? I have a love of pizza. I swear to you, I said this just because I have a sense of humor. I am one of those sick people. I admit it. Mm-hmm. I said, can you at least spread some olive oil on me and some oregano and some spices? I want to go out sort of like a margarita, no cheese, just
right.
And we're laughing. I mean, it is funny because this is the end,
Well,
you're either going to turn into ash or
Yeah.
you're going to turn into a
right.
piece of skeletal remains buried in the ground.
Well, let me tell you a couple of things which are interesting. Number one, I like people who become a tree. Somehow they're incorporated into a tree, either their remain, which I find, okay, that's nice, I guess. Some people are blasted into stardust or something. Okay. There are different ways that you can do it. But the idea which I found, and I mentioned this to my wife, and she says, don't ever mention this again. But I said, if I really could pick a way, if people would honor this, I would love to be donated to the university. I think they still got it. It's called the University of Knoxville in Tennessee. It's called the Boneyard. And it is a facility that is used to do forensic medicine research. And they take your body, they have a picture of it to let people know what you look like, and they will throw it out into a field or put it in the back of a trunk of a car, or they will it'll be out in a field covered in chicken wire to make sure that birds don't attack. They want to see the level of decomposition and putrescence and how percolation to see when a body decomposes, how does the bodily humors, how far do they percolate or absorb? And if I can be responsible for teaching somebody through my discarded spacesuit that is of no use to anyone, but if medical science and forensic science, if I could solve a murder one day, if I could solve the let's say to find the killer of a child because they learned something by virtue of this, I absolutely in a heartbeat would do it. And people would look, and it was so funny, they go, that's terrible. I'm saying, you don't understand. It's this romanticization. This is the part that gets me. I am not here anymore. And that's why the idea, I'm telling you, I will never be in the ground. You will never see remember the old, what was it, W.C. Fields, his inscription was, I told you I was sick. Do you know right now there are little QR codes? Have you heard this? You can go to a tombstone and you can take a picture, use your camera, of a QR code, and it has a little video of what the person wants to say, which I thought was good. Larry, I'm going to leave you with one question. I want you to listen very carefully. And I'm dead serious, no pun intended. Who is buried? Now listen to me. Who is buried in Grant's tomb?
I knew you were going to ask that question. I believe it is Don Rickles.
Yes, right. Thank you. No. Answer my question. Who is buried in Grant's tomb?
Well, this is a gotcha.
Right.
The obvious answer is Grant.
Right, but it's not a tomb. It's a mausoleum. It's above ground. You don't bury somebody in a mausoleum. It's stupid. But technically speaking, it's Grant and his wife, but on Riverside or whatever. But it's excuse me. But it's not a tomb. And there you go with that one. Last one.
Have you and your wife talked about donating body parts?
Yes, but not ours. Yes, but not ours. Other people's. Okay. It's a long story. Remember that case? Was it in Brooklyn or someplace? They had PVC pipes. They took bones out of people and they were harvesting organs, and they're putting in like PVC pipes inside the bone. Whoa. And people would look and they would do X-rays and go, "What the hell is this?" Do you know how much money?
If half the story is true about China and harvesting people.
Oh, yes.
While they're still alive.
I heard a story about somebody, a friend of mine, who was in this very high-end kind of carpentry stuff. He said goodbye to a long customer, and he said, I need a liver transplant, but it doesn't look good. Goodbye, old friend. And he gets a call like, I don't know, a year later, and he says, this can't be. And he shows up, and the guy's looking great. He goes, what happened? He says, I got a transplant. He goes, here? He goes, China. He said, oh, really? He goes, that's all I can tell you. And he kind of winked. He said, okay. the rumor is, I don't know if it's true, but when you have enough money, they will go to somebody in the prison system. They'll have some kind of a link, whatever the cross connection is for this blood type or compatibility. And they'll say, prisoner 324, today's your lucky day. Come with us. And they have a death. You've seen these. You can Google it. Again, whether this is true or not, I don't know. But it looks like a van or something with black windows. And they will euthanize, if you will, the person and take the freshly harvested organ or organs, put it into a cooler. They give it to you, meet you at the airport, and you're off. Either there to have it done or some other place. And it is unbelievably lucrative. Larry, I must run, my friend, my pizza Larry. Have a great and a glorious day. Thank you for gracing the portals of our show with your sapience and your sagacity. This is Lionel with you on Another Side of Midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Alrighty, Lionel with you. This is Another Side of Midnight, 800-848-9222, on a fascinating subject, and that is death. Death. That's all it is. Let's go to Benny on Bayside. You're on Another Side of Midnight
Mr.
with
Lionel.
Good, sir.
Good evening,
How are
Mr.
you?
Lionel. As far as death is concerned, please, anybody who's on the same page, please sign up as a organ donor if you could.
Why is
I
that?
don't care if they get why, because you don't need them anymore. You're dead. And if
Do you
somebody
think?
Possibly, yes, sir.
Now, let me just say something. And I'm not in any way suggesting or intimating or suggesting the following is true. But could it possibly be that at any time in history, some people might have been, well, especially if they're an organ donor, might have been, well, not exactly assiduously attended to be brought back? What I'm saying is, if you're an organ donor and somebody says, should we continue this? Well, I don't know. He's an organ donor. Let's just call it. Now, I've heard these incredible stories. Again, I'm not saying this, but it's something to think about, don't you think?
Yeah, I do agree with you as far as that's concerned. And I happen to be type O blood. My organs are pretty valuable, I guess, because they're compatible with everybody. Type O blood. But again, I do hear what you're saying, but
just a thought.
It is a thought, and I'm willing to roll the dice on that one.
Sure.
Meaning I'll be too far gone. And
listen, I have a friend of mine who recently passed away, but when he was maybe 40 or so years old, his heart was gone, and a young man was killed in a motorcycle accident, and he has his heart, and whenever he became friends with the family, and he always lets the mother have like a little stethoscope to hear his son's heart. It's a beautiful thing. No. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to take that wonderful movement, this wonderful moment that I'm describing, and you desecrating it with making the actual sound. Because you're sick, and I love you, Benny.
It was beautiful.
You're demented. You're a sick person, and I love you. And
I agree. Good night.
Benny, thank you. Don't ever change. I mean that sincerely. Eddie on Long Island. Eddie, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
This is wonderful, Lionel. I'm in the medical field. And
really?
I know someone that had a heart transplant. And really, your heart is, well, you know about your heart, right?
I've heard about it,
Thing that you feel with. And let me go on to the body farm, which you talked about. That's in Tennessee.
Yes,
I had a girlfriend who was an FBI agent, and she donated her body to it. She's still alive.
Yeah.
But and it's to study
Yes.
desecration of the body and
Well,
how
no,
long
not
and
no,
when
no,
you've
not
been killed and when you were left.
Not
But also,
not desecration.
I got something funny
Hold it.
for you also.
Not desecration. Decomposition. Can you hear me?
Oh,
Are you hearing me?
decomposition. Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Not desecration.
You are the wordsmith. I know. I listen to
No,
you.
that's
and
just
I'm
it's just
amazed
called
at
English.
the words that you know.
No, it's just called English. Go ahead, sir.
Well, yeah. But here,
You know what?
here's
Listen,
something-
Eddie, do me a favor. Put you on hold for a second. When I get back, I want you to continue your story. That's so funny. It studies the desecration. We need a study for that? Yes. And the FBI. Anyway, 800-848-9222. A fascinating subject of death. The parameters, the procedures, the provenance, the promenade, the procedures, mortis. 800-848-9222. We'll return with Eddie and his story, and you as well, with me, Lionel, on another side of midnight. 800-848-9222. Hour number 3 coming up. Become a part of this. Stay tuned.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Did we have foregone the music? That's okay. There we go. Alrighty, Lionel with you. This is another side of midnight. 800-848-9222. 800-848-9222. My friends, we're talking about one of the most fascinating subjects is death and the celebration of death. And this, how do I say this? This incredulity, we really can't believe. We're not really sure. We have ideas. We think we know. But it's something that makes us wonder. I mentioned to you about the body farm. I mentioned to my wife that if I had my druthers. By the way, druthers, you know what druthers are? It's a contraction, a portmanteau, so to speak, a conflation of I'd rather. And I'd rather comes into druther anyway. But the body farm is what I had made reference to. The body farm is the popular name for the Anthropology Research Facility, or ARF, or ARF, at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. And it was founded by pioneering forensic anthropologist William M. Bass in the early 1980s. And it was the first facility in the world dedicated to the study of human decomposition, or as I last called it desecration, under real-world conditions. Now, researchers study how the human body decomposes in different environments, including buried and unburied remains, sun versus shade, different seasons and weather, water immersion, clothing and coverings, insect activity, animal scavenging. And the findings help forensic investigators estimate time since death, post-mortem intervals, whether a body has been moved, environmental effects on decomposition or desecration, crime scene reconstruction, identification of unknown remains, and the facility operates through a voluntary body donation program. It works like this. Donors consent during life, of course, or families may arrange donation after death in some circumstances. And after research is complete, the skeletal remains become part of the university's donated skeletal collection for continued scientific study and education. And the body farm is not open to the general public. Please, there are no tours because it is an active research facility handling donated human remains. And access is generally limited to researchers and students and law enforcement personnel and approved trainees. Its pioneering work has influenced forensic science worldwide and inspired books and TV series, crime novels, including Patricia Cornwell's The Body Farm. I find this absolutely fascinating. Now, we were talking before, but I believe Charles. Was it Charles? Was it talking to Charles? Yes, I believe yes. Oh, Eddie. Excuse me, Eddie. Yes, Eddie. Eddie on Long Island. Eddie was going to tell us a story to wow and captivate us. Eddie, I didn't want to cut you off. Thank you for waiting, sir.
No, thank you. This is Lionel. You give me insomnia with your show because it is amazing. It really is. And this is
good.
I'm in the field of medicine. I'm a nuclear medicine technologist, and
I'm sorry
I've had to in my. So you're sorry to hear that. You are someone that, you know, like you could go to dinner with and just talk to you and just have a just great friendship. I've had to go to autopsies and everything. And when I ask you anything about an autopsy, I'll tell you, it's like it's called a cut down. But within like death, in medicine, you know, I don't know how you got into death. But in the field of medicine, I had a girlfriend whose sister was an FBI agent. And she donated her body to the body farm. And I found out about, you know, different places where, you know, it decays and everything. And it gives them evidence and it gives them a timeline. And it's just, it is scientific and so damn interesting how to diagnose things. And in medicine, you want to diagnose things. So, and when you're in such a field in medicine, you're trying to heal people and keep them alive. But then there's the other side of midnight, right? But
I'm saying, but in medicine, you have to understand death. May I suggest to you and all of our great family here a book which I think was just transformational in my life.
Yes.
It was called How We Die by Sherwin Newland. This is Victoria Newland's father. He was a Yale surgeon, and it's wonderful. And by the way, he did incredible advocacy for shock therapy for
depression.
Not CTE, but anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Shock therapy, maybe for depression.
Yes. No, for punishment.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, so a near-death experience, but you're okay. You know,
right.
You'll be well tomorrow. Here, have some rice pudding.
ECT, electroconvulsive therapy. Yes.
Oh my gosh, and that's where One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right? Jack Nicholson.
By the way, ECT. Wait. That has done more harm. ECT, in certain circumstances, it is one of the mildest. It'll just, in some cases, obliterate memory or some forms of it. But it has been, in some cases, of the most intransigent, intractable depression. It has been life-saving. So there's a lot to it. Don't let that movie fool you.
My aunt had that. So she had
Is this a long story?
No, I never saw a difference in her or anything. I didn't, I was just a kid, but my mother said they did that to her. But about death, my neighbor's kids went into, that field. My friend Judy was going to go in on Long Island. She was become a mortician, but she found out that the mafia got into so many funeral homes that the people that ran the funeral homes couldn't make money. And I always thought about that. Well, you could fit a body and a half in a casket, right?
Yes.
Open the top part of it. But with bodies and what happens to them. the mortification. This started. It was in the Civil War. What was that great? Was it in Philadelphia or what? Where the Civil War had this great battle. So many men died.
Is this Antietam, Shoal Creek?
It might have been Antietam, Shoal Creek, but it just didn't strike a memory with me. But they weren't going to bury the bodies there. They're going to send them home. So they started injecting them. So you talked about trocanters before, right?
Right, trocar, yeah.
Which are big, it's a big a needle from God.
Right.
And they were injecting, there was things like mercury and lead.
Yep.
And that was the first part of doing what we would call, preparing the body.
Embalming.
So embalming, that's when embalming started. They injected all these men with
I think the Egyptians would disagree with you. But let's talk about the decomposition, also called putrescence.
King Tut.
This is the great Steve Martin song. The decomposition is this natural breakdown of the body after death, and you can tell the timing of it. And what's interesting is that the stages are fascinating. The first stage is called fresh. This is 0 to 3 days. This is when heart stops, cells begin to die, the body's own enzymes start breaking down tissues. This is called autolysis. Bacteria in the intestines begin multiplying.
They begin taking over. Yes.
Well, that's exactly right. And then you have bloat, which is 2 to 7 days later. This is where bacteria...
I've seen bloat. Yes, I've seen that.
Well, listen, can you do me a favor? If I say something, you don't have to say, I've seen bloat. Let me just get through this incredible lecture.
I apologize. Go ahead.
You know what? I thank you. In fact, you know what? You call me again, my friend. I love you. But let me continue with this. 2 to 7 days. And why this is important, this isn't gross. But let's say you're a detective and you're looking at this and you're saying, I've got to figure out a time of death. You have algor mortis. It has nothing to do with Al Gore. This is the temperature. You have livor mortis, which is the lividity, the way blood pools, and rigor mortis, when that's stiffness. But from 2 to 7 days, you have bloat. This is where bacteria produces gases that cause swelling of the abdomen and the body. And skin may discolor, green, purple, black. Strong odors develop. This also tells you. This will tell you. This all of the body tells you. It speaks to you through smell and through color and change. From 5 to 11 days, you have active decay. This is where soft tissues break down rapidly. Fluids are released. Insects such as blowflies and maggots are abundant, and the body loses much of its mass. And then advanced decay, 10 to 25 days. This is where most soft tissue has decomposed. The odor diminishes. Insect activity changes. Cartilage, ligaments, and tougher tissues remain. And then dry remains. This is skeletonization. This is weeks to years. This is only dried skin, cartilage, hair, bones remain. And eventually the bones, slowly weather and deteriorate. And the reason for this is that when you see this, and you are a police officer or a detective, and you're trying your best to put together when the time of death was, all of these factors are critical. This isn't gross. This is natural. And one of the things which is the most important aspect of this in the book How We Die by Sherwin Newland was that death is not an oops. It's not a uh-oh. Sometimes it is, because remember, there are 4 basic styles, if you will, of death. Think of this acronym, NASH: natural, accidental, suicide, or homicide. Actually, there's also unexplained, but NASHU doesn't really, do anything. But this is, nature says, we don't want you around forever. And once you die, we want you out of the way. We want you to be reintroduced into the ground, into the air, into the ether. We're all stardust. You will from dust you came, and dust you shall return. This isn't just an expression. And once you become aware of this, once you really become absolutely aware of this, then you will be able to appreciate life better because death is not a mistake. Now, you want to obviously forego this as long as possible. You also don't want your death to be painful or horrid, but it is so transitory. And what I found out was when I was a prosecutor, it never ceased to amaze me how some people could fall, trip, hit their head, and die. Other people could have been shot. I represented a woman one time successfully for attempted first-degree murder. It was attempted because this person was not dead, but he was shot, allegedly by her, 5 times in the head. 5. And because of luck, happenstance, whatever it was, he was not only alive, but he waved down an EMS truck. Another person falls, boom, that's it, dead. You just don't know. There's this, the body is either so resilient or so fragile, either way. And we all say, live each day as much as you can. Well, we'll do the best we can. 800-848-9222. In fact, the most fascinating subject we're talking about, death. Why do you think they save it for the end? On Another Side of Midnight.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Now when he was a young man, he never thought he'd see people stand in line to see the boy king. How'd you get so funky?
This song was so huge. I can't believe when the Tutankhamun, What Do You Have in Common, made its way to the U.S. I forget what year it was. It was King Tut this, King Tut that. And the Steve Martin, this song was huge. I mean, I can't believe it. Don't forget Rick Dees' Disco Duck was huge too. I don't even know what the hell that was about. It was just, in fact, I look back at what Steve Martin did, his comedy. It was imbecilic, but it was huge. I don't get any of it. I really don't get any of it. But I do know about this notion of death. And the best part is, where do we go? And while we're on this subject, have you ever, listen to me, listen carefully, have you ever seen somebody who's been dead? Have you ever seen somebody who's supposed to be dead? You can call them a ghost, an apparition, a spirit. Have you seen this? Do they talk to you? Have you been to a medium? Do you think that's possible? 800-848-9222. Charles in Whitestone, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
How you doing, Lionel?
Good,
I don't
Charlie.
know why you're not on 5 days a week anymore, but I got you on the
please
weekend.
don't say that.
Anyway.
Please, no. This is good. This is good. Thank you. Please, no.
I actually, when I was 23, I took my brother to Frederick's Funeral Home for a job.
Yes.
A friend of mine worked there. When we got there, we went downstairs and we were in the room where they're preparing bodies. And the guy says, we need some help. So the guy asked me to help dress this guy. So here I am. The guy had an autopsy. He had no breastbone. We were stuffing his shirt and stuff with like tissue paper. And it was just the craziest thing. And the first thing I did is I walked over, I lifted his head, and I dropped it. And the guy, my brother says, what the hell? I said, listen, if he's going to get up, he's going to get up now. I said, I'm taking no chances. But
you are a wit.
About spirits.
Yes.
When I was 11, my friend's parents were killed. I was going in for an operation, and they were both killed in their restaurant in College Point, Queens. And I was in the hospital. When I woke up, when I got out of the operation, I saw 2 people at the end of my bed, and it was my friend's parents.
And she came out. I said, "What are you doing here?" And she walked over to me. She goes, "We just wanted to make sure you were okay." And I chased them down the hall, and it took 7 people to strap me down to the bed again because I chased them out of the room because she said, "We have to leave now." So that's pretty, yeah.
What
and
do you think that was?
So it's not like.
What do you think that was?
I tell you the truth, it was real as I could tell you. The craziest thing was I found years later, I didn't go to the funeral. I was in the hospital an extra 5 days because I ran on the leg that I had operated on. So the dress she was wearing when I saw her, she was buried in. I didn't find that out until about 5 years ago. From
do you think this was this woman's spirit or soul speaking to you?
I absolutely think so, because she only said to me, I said, why are you here? She says, "We just wanted to make sure you were okay," because she knew I was going to have an operation.
Now, were you asleep at the time? Were you awake? Do you remember?
I was awake. I actually ran down the hall chasing them when they left because I didn't want them to leave. And I jumped out of the bed.
Now, let me ask you something. Charles, I have no reason not to believe you. Now, I don't know what it is. I can't say, well, obviously they're alive. But I have no reason to dispute you. See, Charles, here's the thing. You have lived, what are you, about in your 80s? I'm trying to guess by your tone, by the quiver in your voice,
65.
The hesitation, by the decrepitude that is apparent in your vocalization. I kid, of course. But I would venture to say that, Charles, you've never had a hallucination in your life. You're not one to say, well, that's Charlie for you. He sees it.
No,
so
it's
all
not.
Of a sudden,
that's not a. And as you said, when you think people fall down to the ground and hit their head and die, I was hit by a car going 50 miles an hour, went 300 feet down the block, over the light pole, landed, and still alive.
Well, that explains why you're. Well, that's why you're insane. I'm kidding, of course. But here's the thing. But Charles, the point I was trying to make was, you've lived your whole life and you say, this has never happened to me. Now, of all the people in the world, for you to, it's not a stranger that came to you, it's a woman that you knew. And lo and behold, she's wearing the clothing. So that means something. Let me tell you, a guy I talked to years ago, he said, I remember I did a radio show years ago on this, it was an internet radio show. This is when the internet first started. And he said he owned a hotel, and nobody told him about this, but it was haunted. He said, now let me explain to you a couple of things. When something is haunted, the person that haunts you, not necessarily to scare you. That's not the point. It's not because they're evil, but normally they die interrupted. They're killed. They're murdered. They die by surprise, by accident. It's never an old person. Now, prisons, mental hospitals, there's a lot of that there. Let me tell you where there's a lot of spirits. Ground Zero, a lot. I'll never forget was it the 1st or the 5th year anniversary? I forget which one, but I was watching the channel, and you can check, Channel 4 was doing this, and they would read the names, and all of a sudden, might have been the 1st, I don't know, but there was this wind, this breeze, this circles right in the middle, right, you could see the dust or whatever it was, and it was it was almost, women. And I appreciate your call, Charles. Thank you so much. But let me just say what I'm going to say. I am not in any way telling you that I believe in anything, because people use the word believe too much. They get the word confused, and they don't mean to, but they just do. A lot of times it's people really mean to say they wish, and they wish. And I understand it. It's one of those things where I understand, I get it. They wish, they hope, they think. It's hard to put into perspective. But going back to this fellow, He told me something I'll never forget. He said, now if you come to this place, I'm warning you. This is a hotel, he said. You're going to see it. And it might not be something you see. You might feel something brush against you. You might see something. I don't know. Sometimes you won't. There's also there's been talk about things that are sometimes detectable on Kodachrome, actual certain film. And I don't know anything about cameras. Years ago, there was a friend of mine who worked at an Eckerd's drugstore. Eckerd's were big in Florida. Big, Jack Eckerd, and anyway. And she worked in the photo development place, which is very interesting because she could not believe the stuff people would have developed. This is before cell phones, obviously. And there was a picture that when she brought the package out, she was instructed, tell the woman who's picking up these pictures, this one picture didn't come out and we're not going to charge you for it. So she pulls this picture out and she goes, oh, no. No, this is exactly what's going on. And there was this, this was a picture. It was a campfire. And to the right of the campfire was a little girl sitting on, I don't know, a log or something. But the campfire looked like an explosion. It looked like a fire, like a funeral pyre. Huge flames, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, big. So this woman explained to my friend that what had happened was they were at this camping exhibit or campground, kind of desolate. And either a group of, I don't know, bikers or thugs or young toughs or somebody showed up. Frightened everybody. But this little girl was sitting there, didn't even react. When one of the leaders or the people in this group looked over, they became startled and took off. She says, now, look at the picture again. This flame. Look at it. And in this flame, you would say that's an angel, or it's an image of a person, of a thing, of a human. Well, who knows? But could that they have seen something protect their child? I don't know. Could they have? So anyway, so we did some research then. This is the days when we had a library, and sure enough, it is believed that just like we can't see infrared, ultraviolet, we can't see certain frequencies of the human visible spectrum, there are energies and, I don't know, wavelengths, frequencies that are there that we can't see. And the idea of the ghost, the apparition, is something that either does not know they're dead, does not want to leave, or is stuck in this kind of a halfway, like a land. What am I trying to say? Like it's a twilight zone. Now, here's the story. Is this possible? Absolutely. I can't see half of the world, either because of dark energy, or it's microscopic, or it's on a frequency. I can't see this. I can't see this. How do you think bugs see? They have no eye. They don't see things. They can see thermal patterns. For you to think, and listen to me carefully, I don't want you to believe in anything, but for you to think that the parameters of your visual realm, your sensory input, that your ability to hear and touch and taste and see and feel and smell, and if you think that's it, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. There are things, and quantum mechanics has taught us, my God, the notion of entanglement. Oh, dear God. And the more you get into it, you'll find out that is the mechanism of God. Let's go to, let me see. Let's go to Matt in the Bronx. Matt, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Good morning, Lionel. I know you're quite wrapped up in this morbid conversation about death and dying.
Excuse me.
But I wanted to shift gears.
Excuse me. Wait. No, excuse me.
Yeah.
This is morbid?
Well,
you think this is morbid?
Well, it pertains to death.
Wait a minute. You think that talking about death is morbid? Is that what you're saying?
Well, to a certain extent, yes.
Why you don't find death fascinating?
To some extent, it definitely delves into your ability to imagine what lies beyond our physical existence. Yes.
But why do you? But you speak of it off-putting. I mean, this is like you think that perhaps maybe when somebody has an unusual or sometimes maybe an excessive interest in death or violence or gruesome, if it's unhealthy or abnormal in a psychological sense, is that what you think it is? Do you think it's I'm serious. Do you really? Because this fascinates me. You think this is morbid? This is a subject that fascinates and has fascinated man and cultures since the beginning of time. And you say it's morbid? I think we need to talk about this.
Okay. Well, insofar as that, there can be a unhealthy obsession with death. It's actually called thanatophobia.
Right. But we're not talking about that. Do you think we are thanatophobic? That this is some kind of a thanatos obsession? Is that what you think? It's fascinating.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Our number is 800-848-9222. The man never forgets. Let's go to Eddie on Long Island. Eddie, in the last moments of the show, what's on your mind, good friend?
So I got a funny one for you about death, and we want to get back on that subject because it's so deep and so long.
Morbid discussion, yes.
Morbidity. So at my grandfather's wake, in the funeral parlor, my sisters are sitting there in the second row, and there's a metal seat there with the frame and the vinyl back and the vinyl cushion that you sit on. And in the back, between the top of the vinyl and the bottom, there's a slit. And every time someone sit on it, it was like a whoopee cushion.
Mm-hmm.
It went.
I got it.
Then they'd get up because they didn't want to sit there. And my sisters and I are trying not to laugh.
Right.
Because we're in this solemn state. But
indeed,
it was cracking us up, and our grandfather had a great sense of humor, Lionel. And you have a great show, my pal.
Eddie, I thank you, my friend. There's nothing like, there's also, thank you for calling, sir. There's also this belief that sometimes that there are noises, and not only that, but sometimes bodies will get up and move, and flatulence, and it's very, very simple if you think about it. We're just a repository of gases and molecules and what have you. In any event, let's go to Kenny in New Jersey. Kenny, you're on Another Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Yes, how you doing, Lionel?
Good, Kenny.
All right. I wondered, your friend Father Lloyd, you mentioned him several times.
Oh, yes.
Used to have discussions with him. And I wondered if this topic ever came up with Father Lloyd.
About death?
No, I'm sorry, about death. About the resurrection of the body and his feeling about that. And
well, that would qualify, that would be subsumed under the rubric of death, I think. We didn't talk about that per se, but yes, as far as death and what happens after and the hereafter and living your life and, the spiritual, theological part. By the way, he was the oldest Paulist priest. And he died at 103. Lived in Hell's Kitchen, born at St. Paul's, baptized. He was not anointed. What's the word? Anyway, I'm tired. But his whole life was in this area. We never did. But I tell you what, he was one of the most fascinating people. And I thank you so much for your call. Last call, Bob in Riverhead. Bob, your last thoughts, good sir.
Well, I was in touch with you last Friday, and I'm telling you about an out-of-body experience. You ran out of time. So the deal was.
Well, look at you now. We're running out of time again.
I realize that. I'm sorry. It's a lot of meditation energy to get out, and a lot of meditation and focus and energy to get back. And, there is such thing as time dilation and time loop, and I think that's probably what happened.
How do you know that? How do you know there's such thing as that? How does it? And explain what that means.
Well, when you're having an out-of-body experience and you're projected, you can suffer, and I was a novice, but you can suffer from reduced energy because you used a lot of energy getting out. Mm-hmm. And when you try to get back in and you don't have enough energy, you can kind of panic, kind of feel like, what's going to happen. I'm stuck. Exactly. And in that sense.
Has that happened to you?
Well, I was stuck outside of my body it felt like about 2 weeks. It felt like about 2 weeks.
What happens to your body once you're stuck outside? What happens to it? Does it exist? Does it go on autopilot? What happens?
Yeah, homeostasis on autopilot, but it felt very empty. And so, for lack of a better term, your energy field, your soul, disconnected. But it did feel like if I didn't get back, that I could die there. Now I know that's not a common belief, but it just felt like it. And if something happens to your body, and when you're in that state, and it dies, then you will die because your physical body did die. But
let me tell you something, Bob. Listen. I appreciate you. I want you to call me again. In fact, call me again tomorrow. Let's talk about this more. I want to hear more about this, so we're not always up against the end of the show. I thank you for this. I find it fascinating. Thank you for your call, and thank everyone who called this evening, and also thank the good Mr. Bill and Jackson for your incredible work stewarding the helm. We'll see you tomorrow, my friends. Thank you so much. By the way, follow me at Lionel Nation on YouTube. And until we meet again, remember, this is Lionel with you saying the monkey's dead. The show.
The Other Side of Midnight with Lionel.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
My fellow Americans, if you think you know politics, think again. I'm Michael Cohen, and every week on When You Know, we're pulling back the curtain on power, politics, media, and the people making headlines. On my new WABC radio show, you'll hear conversations from names that you know. People like Jerry Falwell Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, Alan Dershowitz, and many, many more. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even hear from the president. No scripts, no spin, just real conversations with people who were in the room where it happened. And trust me, we've got some very big surprises coming. Look, I've spent years at the center of politics, controversy, and power. I know the players, I know the stories, and now I'm bringing you inside. When You Know, Sundays at 5 p.m. on WABC Radio. And When You Know Unleashed, wherever you get your podcasts. Because with me, you never know who's going to show up.